Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the first of our series of online site visits for our 2022 grant finalists. My name is Diane Carey and I am the Deputy Co-Chair of the Melbourne Women's Fund Grants Committee, and I'm very pleased that you can join us today. What I'd like to do is invite you, as we always do, to join us in the spirit of reconciliation with an acknowledgement of country. Melbourne Women's Fund sincerely acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as First Australians and traditional custodians of country. We recognise and value their continuous connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Thank you. Okay, so there's a couple of things that I'd like to draw your attention to before we begin. You'll notice that your video has been turned off and you have been put on mute. This will remain in place for the duration of our tour. However, we still want you to be part of this tour and you're welcome to ask questions or leave comments. But what we'll do is we'll get you to add any questions that you have into the chat function of this Zoom meeting. Anyone not familiar with Zoom, the chat function is if you take your mouse and scroll down towards the bottom of the window there, the Zoom window that you're using, a little toolbar should pop up and there'll be a chat bubble. Just click on that and you can type in your questions. We have Amanda who's working at the back end of our Zoom meeting today, and she will collate all the questions. And at the end of our tour with First Step, we'll endeavour to answer as many questions as we can while time permits. Okay. Oh, another thing is this tour is being recorded. So people who can't be with us at this time of the day can have a look on the website and see all our site tours. They'll all be uploaded to the Melbourne Women's Fund website. And so you can check out all the other finalists as well. Right, let me introduce our finalists, the First Step organisation. I'm pleased to provide a brief overview of their application. Their project is seeking support for a project titled The Road Home, and it falls within the Melbourne Women's Fund focus area of women and homelessness. The project will take place in East St Kilda and aims to provide a roadmap and ongoing support networks that enable vulnerable women to successfully exit homelessness. Today we have Patrick, the CEO of First Step, and Kim, who is the manager of the Road Home project, and they'll be leading us through this tour. So I'm very happy now to hand it over to Patrick and Kim. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, and welcome. I also want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're introducing you to, the Yalukit Willam clan of the Bunurong Nation. Now, we know it's noisy out here, but we wanted you to see where the magic happens just before we wander inside. It's my great privilege today to introduce to you all two great organisations and one great idea. To help me with that, I'm going to be introducing you to two great people also, Caroline and Kim. First great organisation I want to introduce you to is Launch Housing. And we're going to wander up to the front door. So I'm not sure about where you are, but here in East St Kilda, it's a very grey day. And you might think that the mood, the light misting of rain, the greyness befits maybe the sombre nature of the work we do here. But I can tell you that if it were to fit better, it would actually be gale force winds, lightning and thunderstorms. The women who come to Launch Housing East St Kilda are in a particular moment of crisis, and many of them have resiliently survived extraordinarily challenging childhoods, growing up in out-of-home care, 20, 30 foster families, preteen illicit drug use, early school leaving, all sorts of challenges, many of which are closely related to poverty. But they come to a place like this, and this is where some fairly extraordinary things can happen. In a moment, I'll introduce you to Caroline, who helps to run this place. And I first want to give you three concepts that are very much in common between launch and first step. That's welcome, empathy, and hope. You'll see as soon as you walk in that front door that one of the real priorities is to create a welcoming environment. People have to know that they are welcome no matter what is going on in their lives. And then we have to provide empathy. And empathy is a very simple thing. It's about seeing the person in front of you as a real human being, not as a resident or a client or a patient or a consumer, but a real person with hopes and dreams, wants, desires, challenges, and a past, a present, and a future. And the last thing is hope. Welcome, empathy, and hope. They got this far. They demonstrated that much resilience. And here, great things are going to happen. Come on inside. Fantastic. Thank you. We are now in the lobby. Can we call it the lobby or the foyer?
Yeah, whatever you want.
Whatever we want. Caroline works here at Launch House in East St Kilda. Tell us your position. Tell us a bit about what happens here at Launch.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the site manager at Launch Housing East St Kilda, where we are crisis accommodation for anyone who identifies as a woman. We have 15 self-contained units here on site. And we also support women in the community through outreach in transitional support as well, in transitional housing. Women can stay here for 8 weeks, although sometimes it does extend depending on circumstances. And they work really closely with their case manager while they're here to focus on housing outcomes. So we have 4 case managers on site, a team leader, a coordinator who oversees the after hours team. And we also have a wellbeing officer and a wellbeing program, which is really great and helps with our trauma-informed approach. So the wellbeing officer organizes like community walks, different events to celebrate with the clients, art therapy. We have pet therapy on site as well.
I didn't know about that. That's fantastic. We love pet therapy.
Smith. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
We have a range of different activities that happen. The building itself, as you've seen from the outside, is like an old heritage listed building with 5 rooms upstairs, and then we have separate units at the back. We have a communal lounge where clients can come together. We have movie nights. And we also have a kitchen that the clients can also use together.
Caroline, do you want to tell me just a little bit about the challenges facing women when they first come to us?
When they come here, they come with a range of complexities and it's often high acuity of needs. So a lot of them have experienced, have significant mental health conditions, which is a leading cause of homelessness as we know at the moment. A lot of them have also experienced family violence, and they have alcohol and other drug addictions as well. And they also come with legal issues as well. Obviously having the First Step team here through the Red Home program is really, really
Don't
fantastic.
tell them about that yet. That's the secret surprise. Tell me one more thing. How long do women usually reside here?
So they stay here for 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
As it is crisis, and during that time, their main focus is housing. However, obviously they come
housing after they leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
With their case managers. So the case managers will do a VHR application for them and also explore what other types of housing they could potentially obtain. For when they leave here.
Fantastic. I also want to publicly thank you for allowing me here today. Men are not normally allowed on site at LESC, so it's a rare privilege. Thank you, Melbourne Women's Fund, for giving me that excuse. Caroline, I will release you to your duties. We might bump into you later down the track. Thank you.
No worries.
The second great organisation I want to introduce you to isn't here, but 2 of us are here to represent it, and that is First Step. So First Step is an addiction, mental health and legal services hub in the heart of St Kilda, just a little bit down the road. Now, even saying that much, you might be getting a little bit of an idea of what our great idea is. But let me explain that the providing people with all the help they want and need from one team in one place, like we do at First Step, with a GP, mental health nurse, psychologist, psychiatrist, legal team, social wellbeing coordinator, family therapist, group therapist, all those services. That is very unusual. First Step has a stellar reputation for this unique combination of service delivery options. So we're going to go into one of the consulting rooms here, and I'll introduce you to someone else I want you to hear from. Coming through, watching the step, Nelly. Fantastic. In we come. Thank you. So, fabulous. We've talked about the two great organisations. I'm now going to introduce you to Kim Coop. In the First Step context, Kim is team leader of our mental health services. In the context of the great idea, she's the program manager of the Road Home, and she's going to tell you what the Road Home is about. I'm going to sit down. Oh, no, I'll be over here. You can chat with me or chat with them. Yeah, we'll see what works best.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Kim. I'm the project manager of the Road Home partnership. So Road Home is an integrated and collaborative partnership between First Step and Launch Housing East St Kilda, and we provide a weekly on-site clinic delivering health, mental health and legal support to any of the residents that reside on site here at Launch Housing East St Kilda, as well as to the women that are supported through transitional housing after they've left crisis accommodation. Our service is fully integrated, which kind of just means that we collaborate and work together with the case managers here while we're supporting the women that are here to address any health needs, any mental health concerns, or supporting them through their legal issues. So we have a lawyer and mental health nurse that come on site weekly. We did have a GP, but our GP left and we've been unable to recruit.
We'll have a GP again soon.
We will, because there is certainly a need for it. We also have implemented an independent developmental evaluation that's been done by the LDC group. So they're providing an independent evaluation of the outcomes and that we're achieving and helping us to kind of have a broader picture of an independent broader picture of what we're doing and what the potential short-term and long-term impacts are of that.
Fantastic, Kim. Thank you. No, that is really great. So I think you heard from Caroline that the overwhelming focus when women reside here at LESC is obviously their safety and wellbeing while they're here, but sorting out housing options when they leave LESC, which as we heard is only after 8 to 10 weeks. So what we also know is that if they depart here and they have mental illnesses that remain untreated or unsupported, if they have very serious legal needs, and many of them will because of family violence issues, or if they have medical conditions that are unaddressed, haven't had basic female health checks for potentially some people for decades, we know that the likelihood of the next option for them succeeding is greatly limited. In a sense, as human beings, we are only as good as the weakest link in the chain. And what the health system provides to us generally is a very siloed approach. You just imagine the magic here when you are going to hear about a case study in just a moment. But imagine how this works when the tenancy support worker talks with their client, with the lawyer, and with the mental health nurse, and they're all discussing the challenges and the strengths that this particular female resident faces, and together they can coordinate a response. That is really quite unique. That is the magic of the Road Home model. I hope I'm driving that point home enough. Did I mention that it's quite unique? Kim, is this kind of wraparound service, is this normal in the health sector? You've worked elsewhere.
I have, and it is absolutely unique. I will pick up on your wording. Having an integrated health service and wraparound support within a crisis accommodation facility is not the norm, even though I strongly believe that it should be. What we're doing here is kind of using the time that the women have here to provide brief intervention in the context of their mental health or their legal or their health issues, and hopefully creating a starting point for some stability, and then referring them on to community supports when their housing outcome is established, so that they can continue that work.
And Kim, I have just read the 36-page year one report, which really emphasises something that maybe is not super obvious to the people from the Melbourne Women's Fund. It's not simply important that you have those different professions. What's really crucial, and what we've emphasised from the start and we've learned how to do better and better, is that we're taking a team from First Step who all work together, the lawyer, GP and mental health nurse, and they're coming here and they're a team within a team here at Launch Housing East St Kilda. They're not just professions who happen to be providing services. This is a very collaborative, fully integrated model with constant communication between the professionals. Do you want to speak about that just for a minute?
Yeah, so it's not, we describe it as this is not an in-reach service. We don't show up once a week, provide a service and then leave. What we've established and fully integrated as a core component of this project is integration and collaboration. So we liaise with the case managers, we provide advice or guidance, even if maybe the woman's not feeling ready to talk to us directly, but their case manager, with their permission, may have some advice or some ideas about where they could receive support or what avenues of support are available. And we kind of just spend a lot of time doing team building between the case managers here at LESC and the First Step staff, so that we've kind of created a new team, a hybrid team of two services that are working together.
I'm going to stand corrected. I should now no longer call it a team within a team. It's one team, and that's fantastic. So I wanted to talk to Melbourne Women's Fund also about sort of how this fits in context, I suppose. Now, obviously, Kim's primary concern week by week, and that of everyone working in this building here, is the well-being of the women who live here at LESC. That's what they're all about. As a team, when you bring in sort of the executive and our fundraising engagement coordinator, Nellie, who's on the other side of this Zoom here, she's waving, there she is. What's really important to understand is that this is proof of concept. We're 1 year into a 2-year proof of concept. We've got fantastic support from the Ian Potter Foundation, Jack Brockhoff and others, enabling us to do this independent evaluation, by the end of which we want to demonstrate that this needs to be the new normal, that joined up, integrated, coordinated, however you want to talk about it, people having the right professions in the building, all communicating with each other, is the way that you help people with co-occurring needs. And every single woman who comes through the front door here, every single woman has co-occurring needs. You can't silo her out. You can't look after housing over here, look after mental health here, look after legal over there. That is not the way it works. All the help people want and need from one team in one place. So we are particularly asking for help with the Melbourne Women's Fund, not just to deliver the care that is so important here, but for that long-term vision that in some years' time, you'll be hearing about other projects just like this, inspired not only by the fact that it works, but what we've learned about how to integrate, how to collaborate across two organisations in the manner that we're doing. We've also scheduled today to hear from Kim with a particular case study from year one. Kim, have you selected someone out of the many women that we've assisted? I
have. There are several good news stories, but I've managed to pick one. So I'm going to very briefly tell you the story of a woman who I'm going to call Brianna. Her name has been changed to protect her anonymity and her privacy. But Brianna landed at LESC after a period of sleeping in her car. She found herself without a place to sleep after the car was towed and impounded because of several outstanding fines on the car. So Brianna ended up sleeping in her car after fleeing a family violence situation, and then landed herself at LESC. So in the context, when she arrived at LESC, there was a lot of stress happening for her, and she was feeling very overwhelmed by everything that was going on. So with the support of her caseworker and the first step team, Brianna had some health checks and reviews by her GP. She also got rescripted for some medication that she'd been without for several weeks because she hadn't been able to find a bulk billing GP or someone that would see her. Our lawyer helped her sort out some of her fines and also provided advice to her around the process around taking out a family violence intervention order to protect her from her previous partner. And our mental health nurse did some work with her around managing stress and helping her to find calm and feeling more centered, I guess, and just how she sat with some of the stress and dealing with additional stress that was going on for her. We're also able to refer her to get her eyes checked and help her to get a pair of glasses, because it turns out that she was struggling to read because she couldn't see the words that were written on the page. And when she left Les, we provided coordination support in the community to help her link up to similar professionals in the new area that she was moved into once she had a housing outcome. So that's kind of what we were able to do for someone
in a very short space of time.
8 weeks.
And I think it's probably very easy for everyone in the Melbourne Women's Fund to imagine how difficult it would be to achieve that if you didn't have these people working on site. You know, the caseworker may become aware that there are legal supports required, and then refer to legal aid and expect the client to find their way there. Even if they manage to get all those services that we talked about, none of those people will be talking to each other. Their care would not be coordinated and very likely would not be consolidated.
And the onus becomes on the woman who is in crisis and stressed out to get to a number of services. And if her car's been impounded, she's doing that via public transport. So we're reducing that onus by being here. Just come downstairs, pop in, have a chat to the mental health nurse, have a chat to the lawyer, and removing some of that additional burden that is obviously often preventative for people engaging with services.
So that's it. That's the road home. It is about providing at an absolute crisis moment that obviously represents danger. There's homelessness there, there's danger, but it also represents a potential moment of change. Having one team through a unique collaboration between two like-minded organisations that is doing tremendous good at the moment and that hopes to reform the sector. We've chosen a nice little spot to sit and respond to questions. It's only a couple of metres away, and Kim and I are going to sit up there and get ready for your doozies.
Oh, thank you, Patrick and Kim. That was so interesting. I really appreciate the input that you've given us today, and also the knowledge that you shared with us. I'm not sure what's happened to our recording here, but when I can see you on the screen again, I'm happy to ask a couple of questions of you.
We're definitely
going.
Diane?
Oh, there you go. Good. Yes, you're there. Good. Just weren't on my screen. So I'm going to start with a pretty basic question. How did First Step come up with the idea to create this project?
I think that's probably a me question. So we've identified at First Step that with the client cohort that we work with the challenges that we've already discussed, there are really six key areas where they need the most support. One is support with addiction, mental health. They need legal support. They need social engagement support. What we call meaningful engagement, which is a reason to get out of bed in the morning, whether that's social, volunteering, work or study. And six, housing. Now, at First Step, we do those five. And we're not going to do the six directly. We're not interested in managing properties. We're not interested in managing tenancy. So to have our full, all the help you want and need from one team in one place model, we needed a partner. So we were funded by the Helen McPherson Smith Trust to do a feasibility study, which was done by Social Ventures Australia. And we had a pretty good idea from the start of what we wanted to do. There was a lot of refinement of that model, looking at other models that are in place elsewhere. Before we actually designed this, got Ian Potter funding, it's all sort of flowed. So from an initial idea, that we wanted to be involved in housing as well through a collaboration. We went through a number of steps and here we are.
Oh, very good. Very good. That's great. So my next question is that having listened to the Road Home project, it seems like a pretty obvious program to run. Why hasn't a project like this existed before now?
Well, I might go first, and Kim, if you want to add something, I suppose we talked about this a little bit, but the community sector is heavily siloed. It's the nature of government. It's not their fault. They want to fund a particular area of work for a particular group of activities with a particular outcome. And Department of Housing wants to do something, and Department of Health wants to do something, and Mental Health wants to do something else. Human beings are, however, not like that. Now, there is a move, particularly subsequent to the Royal Commission into Victoria's mental health system. There is a move towards looking at whole people and providing joined up services. So we're very much sort of on the cusp. We're in touch with the zeitgeist with this project, but it has absolutely not been the norm. Even we know there's no such thing as severe addiction, significant harmful addiction in the absence of mental health. But even linking those two things up is absolutely incomplete in our landscape. Kim, what's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think the point that you've made about things being funded separately and the focus being separate is a point worth highlighting. You know, things like accommodation has been funded and established as an accommodation service, with the focus being on ensuring that people have access to safe, secure and appropriate housing. But what we as workers, I guess, in the sector have known and have been kind of working towards or battling against for a very long time is that, you know, unmanaged mental health or stress around legal issues or addiction, or, you know, substance addiction absolutely has a negative impact on people's ability to secure and maintain housing. So the two are absolutely linked. So having a project like this, where we're starting the conversations around addiction, mental illness, health and legal issues at the point of crisis accommodation is really, really important and valuable, and hopefully supporting women to start on a journey of continuing to address those things as they move into safe, secure housing in the community.
Yeah, and even, you know, First Step itself is a unicorn. So the collaboration requires First Step. For this kind of collaboration to really take off, requires First Step to not be a unicorn, but the idea that you have GPs working with lawyers and psychologists and, you know, family therapists is very unusual.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I will just check with Amanda, who's been looking at the questions that have been coming through on our chat function.
Thanks, Diane, and thanks, Patrick and Kim. It's really fascinating to hear about all the work that's involved to help people just get out of the ruts that they're in through the things that have happened to them in their lives, and it's really great. And you know, it'd be great to see a project like this progress. We have one question. The first one is, do women come to the centre with children also, or do they only accept women on their own?
So this Launch Housing East St Kilda is women only, so there are no children at this site. Launch does have an accommodation site that accepts families or women with children, but it's not this site.
Yeah.
I might just enlarge on that question myself and just ask, what do you do in the case where women do have children? Because it must be incredibly difficult for them.
Yeah, so it would largely depend on what the arrangements are with those children. Like I said, if women have children in their care, they would be and they came through Launch Housing, they would be housed at a different site that accommodates children and families. Quite often the women that are here, not quite often, most of the time the women that are here, if they've got dependent children, they are not in their full-time care. So there's often a piece of work sometimes that started here, but oftentimes started once they achieve a sustainable, like a long-term housing outcome around negotiating things like access or an increase in time that their care arrangements are allocated. Some of the older women that we have here have you know, adult children. And so, you know, the staff here actively encourage engagement with families and children within the scope of whatever is appropriate, I guess, based on the care arrangements.
And I think probably, I mean, I'm guessing here, but having a lawyer on site is of great relevance when there's family violence, and obviously family violence can very often involve children as well.
Yeah, and our lawyer provides advice around any sort of orders or arrangements or hearings or any of that stuff that's going on.
Terrific, thank you. And we do have another question. Firstly, a thank you to you. And also the question is, I appreciate it's only year one, but what evidence do you have so far that this approach is working better than the traditional model?
Yes, I'm going to try and quote some things from our midpoint report, which is
before you do, I'm going to say one thing, a slightly sneaky thing. There is no traditional model. It's not a model. It's not a system.
Yeah.
That's all I want to say.
Yeah, well, the traditional model is referral out and hoping that people attend and engage and get to appointments. In the time that we've been running, we saw more than half of the women that were residing here in the evaluation period, I actually think closer to, I think more like 60%, like 2/3, engaged in some way with our service. The vast majority of them had appointments with more than one service type. That means they saw the GP and the mental health nurse, or the mental health nurse and the lawyer, or they got a full package and had a chat with all three services, and also kind of more than, again, a significant proportion of those women also had multiple recurring appointments, which means that they're not just showing up once for one conversation, say with our mental health nurse, they are rebooking and coming back to see us like week on week, or they're doing check-ins or those kinds of things. So I think that's a really good sign that there is need, and people are, because people are accessing service, we're not kind of sitting around not doing much. We've successfully supported women in resolving and managing court matters through our lawyer. We've supported at least one woman to transition onto the NDIS and helped her coordinate that and navigate that process, and help her set up her supports in her new home. And I've just had a mental blank and all the other examples escaping.
That's like, I'm sure it's like amazing. I'm sure that, there's so many areas that you're monitoring, and it's really great to hear about the successful outcomes that are happening, or things that you find are opening up. Yeah. And we are time's marching on, so we just have one more question briefly, and then I will hand back to Diane. We have a question saying, how long is the housing provided through the project?
So launch housing East St Kilda, so this site is an 8-week site, so women reside here for 8 weeks. There is I think as Caroline highlighted, sometimes it can be as long as 10. There is a slight bit of flexibility, but it is a crisis accommodation service. The primary housing focus in that 8-week period is to find them more longer term housing placement options. Now, there is a whole range of them. Some women transition into like transitional housing, which is I guess an interim step between crisis and long-term housing. Ideally, women are not meant to be in transitional housing for more than 6 months, because the idea then being that, say, like Office of Housing Property or community housing becomes available for them, and that is their forever home. The system doesn't work perfectly. So sometimes women are in transitional housing for much longer than intended because of a bottleneck in the system. And the case managers here at launch also provide transitional support to the clients after they leave here for a period of up to 12 weeks. Sorry.
And in addition to that, there have been cases where less residents have gone on to receive longer periods of care from the first step staff that they meet here. It's not part of the model that everyone transitions from road home to first step, but particularly in the case of legal supports, there's been ongoing support mid case, I suppose.
Particularly for women that are going to continue to reside in the area, like in the St Kilda area, so where we would be the local area provider for service anyway if we hadn't met them through less. But if they're moving to other parts of Melbourne, say they move out to Northcote, we do on referrals and make sure that we stay involved until those services have become engaged and women are feeling comfortable and supported. Again, trying to decrease those travel barriers, because it's can be really frustrating getting from Northcote to St Kilda.
Yeah, it can, sure can. I think that's fantastic. Thanks for answering those questions from everyone attending today. And I'll hand back to you now, Diane. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. And thank you, Patrick and Kim, for answering those questions. That was that answered all my questions too, actually. I was wondering what happened to the ladies once they left the emergency accommodation. So it's great that there's a bit of a transition there rather than just, wiping your hands of them and handing them over to someone else. So thank you so much for that. And thank you also to our members who joined us today. I appreciate you taking the time out today to come and do this tour, and perhaps we'll see you on some of the other finalist tours as we go through the next couple of weeks. Before we sign off, I'd just like to make a couple of little notices to our members. A couple of weeks ago, we had our information night, and that was recorded, and the video of that is being uploaded to the Melbourne Women's Fund website. So if you want to check out the other finalists applying for funding this year, you can have a look on there and see the videos and see what they're all about as well. But our big night is coming up on Thursday, the 17th of November. That's our Grants Awards celebration, where you will have the chance to vote for the organisation that you would like to support in this year's funding round. It's at the Melbourne Town Hall, and members should have received an email with a link where they can purchase their tickets. So keep a lookout in your emails. We'd love to see you there on the night. It's a wonderful night. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.